Hey there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Let's Develop. I'm Chris Woolley, and I'm your host for this. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. This is a free educational webinar series brought to you by American Color Imaging. So thank you guys for helping make this possible. So what this is it's a series of webinars where we find some of the top photographers across the nation and we bring them in and they share information with you. It's completely free and we've got some fun prizes and giveaways and stuff if you stay towards the end. Now, if you happen to miss the last episode that we had, it was print competition pitfalls, and PG walked us through some of the common mistakes you're going to see when entering images into print competition and how he does kind of some checks and solves some of the issues like banding, sensor dust, that sort of stuff. Definitely worth checking out. You can view that at acilab.com/lets-develop, along with a ton of other replays of the webinars that we do. So you can definitely check them out there. So up for today, we have Selling Portrait Paintings with Cheri Hammon. And basically, Cheri is pretty fantastic when it comes to this painting thing. She is a very accomplished photographer. She's a master photographer, a master artist, master of electronic imaging, photographic craftsman, certified professional photographer, and a fellow from ASP, along with her state degrees. Whew, that was a mouthful, huh? She began her career in 1986 as a retouch artist for Fitzsims, working in Georgia, where she did negative and print retouching and hand tinting and all that fun stuff. And then she's kind of moved into the modern world starting in 1999. She's been doing commission paintings using Corel Painter to do fine art retouching for professional photographers. So welcome and hello, Cheri. We're excited to have you here today.
Hey, thanks. I'm excited to be here.
So you're going to be enlightening us on how we can add portrait paintings into our product lineup and make some money from it, huh?
Well, that's the idea. That's the plan.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to your presentation. So I'm going to hand it over to you. I know you got your slide deck already up. So let's jump on in.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Thank you, Chris, and thank you, ACI, for having me today. I have a question for everybody. I wanted to know if there are any out there who are already offering painted portraits to your clients, and if not, are there any who want to? If you aren't and want to, hopefully this is going to shed some light on the process and how you can start offering it to your clients as well.
So who here is entering or currently selling painted portraits? If you do, put it in the chat. If you're not, put that in the chat too. Let's give Cheri some feedback on here. Looks like
Yeah.
we got some people. Barbie's doing it with Photoshop. Moses isn't doing it yet. Pamela wants to. Yeti's doing it. Manpreet definitely wants to. Christine's learning it. Timothy's not quite doing it yet. And John's not doing it yet. Tim wants to. So we got a pretty even mix that's coming up here.
Awesome.
So we got more answers coming in. Lots of people are using Photoshop or Corel or just starting with it, but they want to learn about the sales side of it.
Okay.
It's a pretty good group so far, huh?
Awesome.
So, yep, more people saying they're doing some Photoshop stuff on here. But you want to start with the presentation, kind of walk us through what's happening with you?
Absolutely. I'd be very happy to. I'm going to start off with some tips on selling them. I've been doing this for quite a while now, and I have chatted with a lot of my photographers, especially some that sell a lot of the paintings. And I've gotten some information from them over the years on what they do to promote themselves and how they sell them and what works for them, and just little tips that they do to help you out in these areas. So what we're going to talk about for this part is how selling these paintings are going to set you apart from the sea of other photographers that are out there. There's different ways that we can do that in what we offer. And if whether you're doing it yourself or whether you commission someone else to do it for you, selling these paintings is a wonderful way to give your clients a new product line. And it's a little bit more of a formal product. A lot of it has to do with your market. So marketing and selling these paintings it could be a very good way to increase your profits. And one of the first things to do is name your product line. I know a lot of photographers have different finishes for their portraits, and they have names for them, like the Regal or the Basic or something like that. I've got photographers who call them the Masterpiece Collection or the Artist Signature Series, something like that, something that sounds high end, that is going to put a little nudge in your client's brain about how to get across the idea that this is something special above and beyond regular portraits. And tips for choosing an image for a commission painting. Generally, it's going to be pretty much the same as any other portrait. We're going to talk about a few of them. Studio images with nice lighting ratios, and the same for environmental portraits. They can tend to be a little flat outside, but we can always have supplemental lighting or nice directional lighting from natural light. Avoid on-camera flash. This is pretty much the same for anybody doing any kind of work. We tend to avoid the on-camera flash. Keep clothing in key to the overall image. Like if it's a high key image, keep the clothing high key. If it's a low key, keep it darker. And we like to avoid patterns. Solids translate much better to the paintings, especially when they are a formal classical type portraiture. We want the subject to be the focus, and we don't want to be focusing on some crazy clothing. I've had a lot of clothing issues over the years with paintings, and it's pretty crazy when you've got florals and plaids and stripes and polka dots and everything under the sun all in one portrait. So when that happens, we tend to look at the clothes and not the faces. So that's really important. Having samples is really important. We've always heard over the years, you can't sell it if you don't show it. And if you show small, you're going to sell small. So have samples that are going to be indicative of what you want to sell to your clients. You can't tell someone, wouldn't this look great? It's a 30 by 40, and then not show them a 30 by 40. They can't really imagine that unless it's in front of them and they can see it. Product placement. If you have a physical studio, having this in a prominent place, being lit very well, is going to show your clients who come into your studio that this is important and this is your focus. There are plenty of us, though, who do not have a physical storefront studio. So when you meet with your clients, just like when you bring samples of prints or print boxes or albums or anything like that, bring a painting with you and show them framed and how they would be receiving it as well. Seeing it goes a long way, other than just imagining it. Pricing. This can be tricky, and I'm not going to throw out any exact prices, but over the years, I've had photographers tell me they have a different formula. If you are in a carriage trade market, I've got some photographers who multiply what I charge them 20 times to their clients. And then I have some that double or triple it. Just depends on your market. And it's kind of the same as figuring pricing for the rest of your studio products. You want to find out what you want to make. So you need to calculate your cost of goods and all that fun stuff. And it's the same for this. And higher is definitely the only definite answer that I can give you, because this is a higher value. So it's going to have to be higher. I know some photographers have told me they started off pricing for this. They figured their cost for their highest canvas product and then tripled it. That's just one rule of thumb. And there are tons of different formulas out there, but you have to find out what works for you. So in just remembering that you can't really sell these at a low cost and expect people to place a value on it. If it's got a high price, they're going to know it's like I said before, it's something special. Printing. This is an interesting subject because I've got a lot of people that tell me they print on all these different kind of surfaces for these paintings. But what I would ask you to avoid is printing a painting out of Photoshop or Corel Painter, it doesn't matter, on regular photographic paper. It's kind of a step backwards in finishing. The painted portraits are beyond photographic portraits, and what you printed on needs to reflect that as well. I print on true canvas for the oil type paintings and a fine art paper for the softer mediums, kind of like the watercolor look or the pastel chalk look. Those get printed on a matte fine art paper. And I'll talk about it later, but on the canvas, I also offer embellishment as well. And I've got some pictures of that later. That adds a lot more value to it as well. Most of my photographers do one or two of the levels that I offer. I only have probably 10% who don't do any embellishing. But the embellishment adds a lot of value. So the last bit of advice I'm going to give you on this is getting the word out. If you have email newsletters to your clients, do that, or you can do regular snail mail newsletters. Social media, Facebook and Instagram, these are how we market today. And they're very valuable in what you can get from social media. And if you really want to get fancy, and depending on where you are, and if this would go over in your area, have an in-person reception, like a gallery opening, where you've got hors d'oeuvres and your wine or possibly some musicians around, just to get the word out and to unveil your new product line. I know several photographers who do this, and they do it a couple of times a year, and it really gets the people who understand the value and have the money to do it, really gets them interested, because that's what happens in fine art galleries. They have receptions. They pull people from all around. So it's a really good way to get the word out that you're going to offer this. So I'm going to start with some images and what's possible with these painted portraits. Some of these are just straightforward portraits, which I do a lot of. Don't have to do a whole lot to them as far as correcting things. But I do have some photographers that had a circumstance where things weren't just perfect and they didn't wear the right clothes, or something happened, and we're just going to fix it and make it a beautiful portrait. So I'm going to start
Cheri,
with the images.
Quick question. Can you explain on what you mean by embellishments to the photos?
Embellishment. I have two levels. The first level is I'm going to take brushes in clear acrylic gel and brush onto the canvas. And I'm going to make it mimic what I did in Corel Painter. So that kind of gives it the look and the feel of a traditionally painted portrait. The second level I offer is the acrylic plus oil paint accents on top of the canvas as well. So it has even more added value with the oil paint as well. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. This portrait, the photographer had a beach portrait and her light did not go off on the subject. So we added a little bit of light, and the sky was just a blob gray day. So I added some clouds and a little bit of color, and also accented the water to reflect that color in the sky as well. And also, if you notice, the blue accents in the shadows and the warm accents, other areas in the dress, make it all tie in together instead of just having plain white. What I do with adding the colors and the accents, it takes it beyond a photograph and more into a painting. This one, another beach portrait, photographer's image. Didn't quite nail the exposure, so the water is blown out. Parts of the shirt are blown out. So we collaborated on what we wanted to do and added some sunset colors, added some exposure to the water. And so now in the original, you can see he almost blends into the water. So now in the painted portrait, he really stands out and you can really see him a whole lot better. And again, I've added warm colors to the sky and added some of those accents to the water and the shirt and to the tree trunk he's sitting on, and into the sand as well. I usually put blues and purples in shadow areas and warmer colors towards the midtones and highlights. And you can see that definitely here. This photographer, they love this image, but there's a lot of hot spots in the background. We can't always control that. And we can't always control the time of day that we're going to shoot. So I eliminated a lot of those hot spots. I left the highlights there because those are important to add dimension. But then they also wanted the canopy for the trees to be a little bit more defined. So we did that as well in this image. This is one of Dennis's portraits. The dog came from a overall larger family group, and the dog was just part of the family group. And the wife wanted to give the husband a birthday present of just the dog. The dog was special to him. So we did that. We painted it and ended up being a nice gallery wrap canvas. So I just removed all the distracting elements in the background, the people, the leg, and there's another dog in there. Don't know why it wasn't special, but we've got Sir Russell here and gave him more of a kind of like a old masters painted background with lots of accents and blues. I love blues because blues will brighten up portraits and give it a little bit of sparkle, and especially on a warm type background. And then you can also see I've got blues in warm tones accented all around the dog as well. This portrait of this little girl, the photographer was worried that the background kind of went into a dark abyss, and she wanted to eliminate that. And then also that was a highlight on a fence way in the background. So we just took out the fence entirely and lightened up the background and made it a little bit lighter and airier, just to get the feel that the parents wanted. And tree trunks as well. I like to sprinkle around a little bit of cyans and blues and trees as well, because it really kind of balances the warm. And when you have a lot of warms, sometimes it really needs to be neutralized a little bit by adding some cool colors in there. And that way it's a little bit of a color contrast, but also kind of balances out the warm if it's super warm. I hope that makes sense.
It does.
This one is a photographer who loves to do fairy tale type images, and don't know where she found a unicorn, but I want one. So this is what we ended up doing. We took the reins away coming out of the horse's bridle, and the little girl on far left holding it, so it just looks a little bit more natural. Made the background go a little bit more out of focus just to give it that soft look and give it that shallow depth of field look. And again, lots of little cyan accents and blue accents around, since this is a super warm image. Not sure if it translates in the slideshow, but you can see how adding some blues in the bottom and up in the leaves, it kind of neutralizes some of that super warm tone. this portrait, the parents really wasn't crazy about that fountain grass that's behind her. So they wanted some hydrangeas. They had another portrait of another daughter that was older than this one, with some hydrangeas. And so I got the exact color. She sent me a photograph of it. And I went from that to add the hydrangeas instead of the fountain grass, and adds a little bit of interest and a little bit of color. And the tree behind her was just kind of blah. And at the crop, there it would just be a stick sticking out of the background. So I kind of added some branches with a little bit of greenery in it as well, and then kind of eliminated that larger shrub behind her and just kind of made it a bunch of out of focus greenery behind her. It just adds a nice softness to the image. And here's just a straight classic portrait. Didn't really do a whole lot of magic to it other than paint it. Just really pretty classical children's photography. I love doing this. I love the lighting that comes with classical photography, and just added a little bit of lightness to the background so that it didn't go too dark. There's something that we're going to notice a few times when we're looking at the before image in the painting. I'm going to decrease the contrast just a little bit. There's a difference between photographic contrast and contrast for paintings. I generally like the darks a little bit lighter, just because the contrast in photographs is a little bit too much. The darks tend to go a little bit too dark, which in photographic portraits, that's fine. Paintings generally don't look that way because of the paint and how the paint reflects. And so I'm going to lighten up a lot of super dark backgrounds like you've noticed here. This one, this cute little guy, this is the case where I'm going to leave the pattern in the shirt because it's got a Western theme. That's very Western. The type of shirts, plaids and checks and stuff like that. This about the only time I'm going to leave them unless the pattern has some kind of meaning. And then getting rid of the fiberglass fence behind him, and then whatever else all that is behind him, we just made it greenery and just made a cute little portrait of this little guy. This little guy at this age had 10 of his own cows. So he's got a cowboy belt buckle too, and that was important. So I made sure not to obscure it. A lot of these paintings, I tend to paint things kind of loosely unless they're very important. And then this one is kind of a case of the belt buckle. I kept it so that you can still see what it is. This one, the photographer, this is her daughter actually, and she had seen a painting in a gallery, and this was very similar, and the daughter wanted something very similar to this painting, and it was light and airy and wind, and they wanted the dress to be flowing. They wanted her hair to be flowing more than it is, and they wanted some really beautiful kind of dramatic clouds to fill in that blank sky, and also remove that jetty that's in front of her because it kind of cuts her in half. So that's what we did. And she sent me the kind of a snapshot of the painting. It had a lot of tans in it and just a really soft, peaceful type painting. You can see where I added a lot of material to the bottom, made it a little bit longer, and made it look like the wind was blowing it a little bit. And this one's the same photographer, this particular client. They loved the dress, and then when they saw the pictures, they didn't love the dress, and so we made it red. And this was on their property, and it's not very pretty, and I've been working with this photographer for a long time, and she knew that I could do something with it. So I eliminated the right side of the door, made that cinder block wall and concrete floor look a little bit more like plaster and kind of a stone look for the floor. Turn that dark shadow in the bottom greenery into just kind of a darker type floor covering or ground covering, and added some red. Adding the red in the pot on the right and adding the red on the right, on the left, and then adding the flowers on the right kind of gives us a nice composition with color. Pops of red, just to kind of draw your eye all around, and then adding some clouds in the sky as well. And if you notice also in the green in the back, oh yeah, and I got rid of that, whatever that is, that white thing in the middle of the grass, just to make it all solid. Cyan again in the grass and in the greenery and in shadows. You can always see blues and cyans a lot when I'm doing stuff like this. And then just made the trees a little bit softer to give it a little bit more of a shallow depth of field, so that the focus is more on her. This little girl, if you can see bottom right on the original, the out of focus greenery that's there, took that away, put in some whatever type shrub this is, just added to it, and then added to the bottom of that right side plant. Got rid of a lot of hot spots, straightened up the fence, and again, blues and purples in the shadows. This portrait, the photographer had originally had his subject seated, and so you can see where the background light is. It's at her hips, and so he forgot to move the background light up so that it would work with her standing. So we fixed the light, changed the position of the light, and got rid of the busyness of that rug, and then soften the transition between the rug and the background so that it's a lot smoother transition and it doesn't draw the eye. And then they also wanted to add an arm because he kind of missed posing her arm. So I added an arm. Dennis photographed my arm. I kind of put it in place and painted it along with the rest of it. High school boy baseball team. The parents had seen a sample in the photographer's studio and wondered if it would be appropriate for a painting for this particular image. He's sitting in the dugout, and I think it turned out really great. So high school sports get some painting love too. And the parents loved it, so that's all that matters. And who hasn't had this happen? The little boy was not behaving, so they got the brother to sit in the chair with the little boy. And it was originally just going to be the little boy, and we were going to paint the older boy out. And then the parents loved the one of the two of them, but the boy on the left is wearing a shirt that would just kill the painting. So we did a clothing change in Corel Painter and gave it a new background and ended up with this. Another senior portrait, just getting rid of a lot of hot spots in the background and adding some grass just to even out the composition. Again, you can see a lot of the blues and cyans throughout. This photographer had a client bring them a snapshot that they loved of the little girl. They just didn't love that she had a handful of rocks. So they asked if I could put her arms down to, of course, get rid of the rocks, and with both arms. And so that's what we did. And then also, if you notice in the original, she has kind of a greenish yellow cast on the left side of her face and on her neck. So we made her skin tones a little more even to be a little bit more believable. And a lot of those tones are on the right side of her face. So I just evened out her skin tones. Another environmental portrait. The mom wanted hydrangeas to fill in that dead space on the left. So of course we did that. And then also this is another case with the woods in the background going really dark. And so we lightened it up a little bit and made it a little bit more light and airy. Bridal portrait. Do quite a few of these a year. This was from the wedding. So there was no background. There was no setup for this. The photographer found out later that the parents really wanted a painted portrait from this. And so got rid of the wood paneling and the little bit of the piece of art that's right at the top of her head and just kind of made it keyed in the color of the couch that she's sitting on and extended the left side of her veil because it was kind of behind her instead of draped around her, and ended up making a really nice bridal portrait from Wedding Candid. Photographer in Florida. This was a portrait that they wanted a little bit more color in, so gave it a little bit more of a sunset type sky, and carried it out throughout the image. Put the accents of the warm colors in the water, and if you can see her skirt, I made it a little bit more flowy and added some blues. So that's some accents that are in there, and added a little bit of flowing hair with the wind. Family group. If you can notice in the original, we've got plaids, and it's kind of hard to tell, but the guy in the pink shirt, those are pink checks. So we got rid of all the patterns and just made them solid colors, and ended up with a very nice painted portraits. I got rid of some distracting elements like the bright reflection in the big mirror behind them, and some little hot spots showing through here and there with some reflections on things, but very nice painted portrait in the end. Another family group. This is a family that Dennis has been photographing since the mom and dad got married. Dennis photographed the wedding and has photographed all the kids. The little boy on the bottom left is just graduating from high school this year, and the mom wants to do another one before they're all gone. So lovely springtime setting. Love the flowers and the greenery. Added a little bit of color also in the background, and just really obscured the far background, made it a lot more soft, just to keep the focus a little bit more on the subjects. This was a cotton farmer, and in this portrait, they liked him. They liked the cotton field, but they were hoping for a better sky, and they didn't get it. So I actually added some from the same area, some of the trees that were surrounding this particular man's farm, and gave it a sunset image, but also a sunset sky. But also, you notice I warmed the rest of the image up to match it. There's warmth and those warm colors accented throughout the cotton and his shirt, and in his skin. So it's all warmed up so that it's all cohesive. This one was a bit of a transformation. I'm sure you can notice her makeup is darker than her neck and her chest, and with this bright red top and this bright blue background, it just doesn't work. And so the woman's family really wanted something nice and something to be an heirloom. So I made it high key, gave her a white top, gave it a high key, soft pastel colors in the background, lightened up her face where her makeup was super dark, balanced the skin tones between her face and her chest, and opened up her hair and gave her a little bit more lighter strands of hair. Her hair is almost solid darkness here because of the exposure. So I found out the exact hair color, and then went from that. But I think this ended up being a really nice portrait for this family. The photographer did not shoot this. It was something that they brought to the photographer. This one was a really fun project. The photographer had a client who brought in this old 1970 something family portrait. And this was the matriarch of the family. She was a very prominent citizen, and she was a very elegant lady, and they were very regretful that they did not have a beautiful classic portrait of her to reflect that. So we went from this as the base image and got rid of the very 1970s print blouse, gave her a beautiful old masters type background, gave her some pearls, and gave her a skirt. Added a little bit to her hand, and they ended up loving this. And they had quite a large canvas made of this. So I love doing special projects like this, where we're starting with something like what we have here and then ending up with a beautiful piece that's going to be an heirloom for the family for years to come. Now, these next 3 images, they're all bridal portraits, and it's 3 generations. And I really loved working on this, part of a special projects type thing. This is the youngest. This is the daughter, and this is from her wedding. And we added a little bit to the left side. We got rid of the lights that's peeking through her veil and in the background, got rid of the dark background, and ended up with this. Again, I've got warm colors and cool colors kind of sprinkled throughout, really made her veil stand out. It's kind of dark, and you don't really notice it that much in the original image, and gave her eyes some sparkle as well. This is the mom, and this was from her wedding. Excuse me. And the hat is kind of gone in the original image. So the photographer asked if the mom still had it in the hat piece with the veil, and she did, and she brought it in. And I love her, the model that she's using with the veil. So I put these together and added to the bottom, since it's cropped. You really can't see much of her dress. And so we added to the image so that we could have a beautiful representation of what the dress looks like. And also the same background colors as well as the previous one with the daughter. And the next one is the grandmother. And I mean, look at this original. I mean, the original is just absolutely beautiful. I love old photographs, but they wanted it to match. And so I made it look like it was a lot lighter. If you can notice the black background showing through a little bit of the veil. If I had just taken that and put the background in there, it wouldn't have matched. So I had to really lighten the veil to make it work. And then added all the colors from the skin tones and hair color samples that they sent me, and just gave the dress the same kind of look and tone as the other ones. They weren't really sure. So they just said, give it the same kind of look and tone and feel as the previous ones. But I really loved doing that series of paintings, and they're all 3 hanging together. I just thought that was such a beautiful idea, and I loved doing it for them. And another pet, this is from a snapshot. This is actually my sister's dog, and he was only a couple of years old, and he got hit by a car and died. So it was pretty devastating for them, but they loved this dog. His name was Remington. And I took this image, and she said, just do whatever. And so I love it when people give me that kind of latitude to do whatever. And so this is what I ended up coming up with. And I actually liked the green from the John Deere. And so I popped some of that green in there as well. And she loved that. And they have this hanging in their house. So it's amazing what you can do with just some snapshots, just stuff that's not perfect, but you can make a masterpiece out of something that's not perfect. And this is another example. This is a lady's cat, and the cat somehow along the way lost its tail, but she had a picture of the cat before it lost its tail, and I put the tail in there and did this piece for her. This photograph is from one of my photographers in Georgia, but she didn't photograph it. She had a interior designer bring her this original of the horse on the bottom, and then color swatches of colors that her clients were using in a dining room. And they wanted a piece that went with their dining room and went with the colors. There were a lot of tans and grays, and the horse they wanted, this is their horse, thoroughbred, and they really wanted it of that instead of some piece that they really didn't have any meaning to them, but matched the dining room. So this was special to them, and they really didn't want the background. The background really didn't mean much to them. They really wanted it in the tones of the swatch that they sent me. So this is what I came up with. I did leave some of the grass, just kind of changed the color, and the tone with the darker trees, just kind of lightened it as I went more towards the top. And this is hanging in their dining room as a 60-inch canvas. Santa gets some love too. This particular photographer does a lot of Santa type portraits, and we did this one this year. And the window, of course, it isn't a real window to the outside, but I made it look like, I added a painted trees and snow scene to this to make it look like he's at his shop in the North Pole. These are some of the embellishments that I was talking about earlier. Both of these are oil paint on some accent areas in the flowers and in the hair and on the sleeves. So it really adds a lot of value, especially to clients that really appreciate art. The hand painted aspect of the embellishment is really a big seller to the art lovers and collectors who value this type of stuff. And here's some more. The one on the left it came from a period, kind of a Civil War type shoot with just some close-ups. Top left is kind of an overall view of a canvas on a gallery wrap with some embellishments on it. The one on the bottom right is me right smack dab in the middle of an embellishment working on it. So doing stuff like that, I just absolutely love doing the painting part of it, the physical painting part of it as well. And I forgot to stop in the middle to ask if there was any questions.
Oh, we've got a whole slew of them. Do you want to wait till the end for them, or are you about ready?
Oh, that's it. That's what I was talking about.
Well, I've got some questions for you then, and we'll start going through them. So from Rita, how long does it usually take on average to create your painted portraits?
It totally depends on the image. A head and shoulders type image, maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending. And then the family portraits, the more elements that are in it, the longer it's going to take. The most subjects I've had in a painting were 14 people, and it took me a good couple of days to do the whole thing in Corel. That's not counting the printing time or the coating or any of the embellishment. That's just the time in Corel. But totally depends on the image.
Okay. From John, so you say we a lot. So like we took the reins off the horse, or there's a team. It wants to know if there's a team, or if it's all you, or talking about the royal we, or what's we mean?
I'm doing the artwork, but when I say we, I collaborate heavily with the photographers that send me stuff. Generally, we're going to talk back and forth all the time. We're going to be in constant contact and communicating about what we want to do. And then sometimes it's a case of where, oh, I forgot to tell you to add flowers to the background or add flowers to the flower bed or whatever. So it's, I say we because I'm in it with the photographer. I mean, we're a team.
Nice. From Carolyn, what's your turnaround typically?
That depends too. Turnaround time normally is anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. That is normal. I do two really big studio sample specials a year, one in January and one in July. And I can get up to 30 paintings in for that. So if you get it on the beginning, you're good. But if you're number 30, you're going to be waiting probably a couple of months to get an email proof. And that's what I do. I'll do the painting. I'll send an email proof, and once I get an okay on that, I get I send out roughly a 10-inch canvas proof so that my photographers can look at color and density, and then once approved, they sign that and send it back, and then I finish it up. A lot depends on the time of year and on the photographer on how quickly they can approve email proofs and the physical proofs.
Oh, a lot of variables
So
there.
yeah.
So, from Yeti, do you use Corel Painter in all your work?
Yes. Well, Photoshop for the retouching and the prep work, and then Corel painting for the painting.
Okay. From Moses, what's the smallest and largest size you paint?
Well, the digital files, I mean, as far as printing, 16 inches is the smallest that I do, and I printed up to 80.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a pretty big range there.
And it's a quite a process when I'm coating it. It's pretty big, and normally I coat a canvas on a table and I use a roller, and I pour it out and then I coat it. But for this, I have to set up a hard surface on the floor and get a roller with an extension on it, and it's like I'm painting the floor with the coating. And then when this particular 80-inch canvas, that's the biggest I've ever done. Don't have space big enough to do the embellishment on it, so I'd have to do it in sections, and I would have to when I don't know if you could tell from the previous, well, yeah, the bottom right, I have this canvas clamped on a piece of particle board, and I do it before I stretch it. So because when I'm painting and stuff, I can get kind of rough, and I don't want to poke a hole through the canvas, or dent it. Dent it's more likely. But I had, for the 80-inch one, I had to clamp it in sections and then roll up one side, work on that section, and then roll it some more and work on that section. And so doing that with the acrylic and also with the paint, it took several days to get that whole process done. But yeah, that's the biggest I've ever done.
And I think
And
you
I
just
did not.
answered Carolyn's question. Wanted to know if you do finish painting as well, like using oils or acrylics. And it looks like we're seeing that right now.
Yes, yes, that's what I was mentioning earlier. I've got two levels. The first level is the clear acrylic, and the second level is the acrylic plus the oil paint accents.
I got a question from Yeti. Do you start painting at like 8 by 10 at 300 DPI to start off with? So, like, if the client orders a 24 by 30, do you actually start off at 24 by 30, or like, what's your flow there?
I really don't do the 300 PPI. What I do is I have my image is going to be a 35 megabyte file. That's what my computer and Painter likes. If it's bigger than that, for me, it starts bogging down, and it takes 5 minutes for the brush to go across the image. So everything I do, since I print, I don't need a specific resolution to print by. My 80-inch canvas was like 50 PPI, but it was perfect.
Wow. Carolyn wants to know, do you offer workshops?
I used to teach Corel Painter, but I would only upgrade to keep up with the current version, and I would still go back to an older version to use. It's like now I paint in 2015, and I'm not even sure what the version is out. So I kind of retired from teaching Painter several years ago.
Randy wants to know if does the client have a proof approval or artist choice, or like the final bit? You'd mentioned the 8 by or the 10-inch print that goes out. How does that proofing process work?
When I do the painting, I send out an email proof, and then find out if we're in the right direction. And then once I get an okay on that, I send a hard copy on the same canvas for the photographer to judge the color and density. And if there's any changes, they'll mark up the proof, or if it's good to go, they sign it. Once I have that back in my hands, that I know it's approved, then I go forward with printing the final and then getting it finished up with any embellishing.
Carolyn wants to know, do you sign the artwork or sign it with the photographer's name, or what happens there?
I have only been asked twice to add my name to it. And it was from the photographers. Their particular clients were big art collectors, and they valued having the artist who did its signature as well as the photographer. So I've only done that twice. There's this cool thing where I get the photographers, if they want their signature in the painting, they can take a Sharpie, sign a piece of paper, send me like a 5x7 at 100 ppi, and I turn it into a brush, and then I just put the brush on there, and then I paint over it in Corel Painter. And then when if they do the oil paint embellishment, I'll paint the signature as well. So if anything, it's the photographer's signature, or sometimes they get it and then they sign it somehow, like with a paint pen or something like that. But my signature, I've only been asked that twice, and it's rare.
Okay. I've got a couple more questions. We're going to want to be pretty brief on this one because we're almost out of time. This one's from Manpreet. Saying that they just started painting digitally in Photoshop. Would you suggest investing in Corel Painter? Would it make a big difference?
If you're already doing it in Photoshop, stick with Photoshop. Corel Painter has a super high learning curve, and I've just stuck with Corel Painter. That's what I learned in, and I really didn't want to go back and kind of reinvent the wheel and learn how to do it in Photoshop. I know some stuff in Photoshop, but I'm not reinventing the wheel. But for you, if you've already started in Photoshop and you like it, then just stick with it.
Okay. Rick is just having a comment that you've created absolutely wonderful paintings for him, and his clients are ecstatic. So just giving an endorsement there. Yeti wants to know, do you embellish first and then coat it with gel?
I coat it with a UV coating. It's a liquid, kind of a lacquer type thing. And then the first step after that is the acrylic, and then the oil paint. You can't go the other way around. You can't put a water-based product on an oil-based product. It has to be water-based first and then oil.
Okay. Yeti has a follow-up, and this is the last question we have time for. So with the image sizing, where do you start? Do you start with like 8x10 and then upsize it after you've done the painting? Or what are you starting with? If it's like a 24x30 image?
It is a 35 megabyte file. The outside dimensions don't matter.
Okay. So you just do it based off the file size then?
Yep.
Okay. And then if somebody wants to hire you, because you work with a lot of photographers on this, what's that process look like? How do they go about doing that?
My contact information here, email, or you can, if you want to send me Facebook message. I mean, any way you want to talk to me. All my contacts are up here. Basically, we start with an image. And then we talk about what we want to do, what the look that you're going for, canvas, or oil look on canvas, or a softer medium on the fine art paper. Then just make the decision. I mean, you can send me images through email, Dropbox. You send it, we transfer.
You're pretty easy to work with. Just get a hold of you.
Yep.
I'll also send out all your contact information in the follow-up email that's here, so everybody has it in case you aren't getting that screen grab or taking a cell phone shot or jotting it down. You'll have that in the follow-up email. So be sure to check with that one. Wow, Cheri, thank you so very much for sharing so much information. Everybody's just commenting here about how much they love your artwork. You'll have to ask Dennis on all these comments that are right here. I'm sure he'll be able to share how much everybody loves you.
I have a PDF as well that my notes at the beginning came from, that I send to my new clients on selling. If anybody wants that, just feel free to email me and I'll send it to you.
Okay, so be sure to jot down her email address or check that email so you can get the PDF for onboarding there. So I do have some prizes, giveaways, and specials and stuff from American Color Imaging. So before we get to the prizes and giveaways, I want to let you know about some specials going on. And I know the screen looks a bit busy, but ACI's got some cool, fun things that are happening. The left half of the screen shows their current specials that are open to everybody, not just the Let's Develop crowd. So they've got buy one, get one free on press cards, half off on blankets, and half off on Background Town. And if you are a background designer, they've got a contest going on right now with over $10,000 in cash and prizes for designing some awesome backgrounds. The unique special for today, if you're watching here, you can get gallery wraps for 25% off. No, this does not include Cheri's artwork on them. That's just normal gallery wrap printing. You can get that for 25% off through May 2nd. Make sure you're jotting down that code, and yes, it will be in the follow-up email as well. Also want to let you know about some of the upcoming shows we have, Overcoming Sales Objections, social media for photographers with some information about doing video. If you want to learn about Photoshop painting, that's coming up in May as well, and Epic Senior Portraits. So we've got kind of a fun lineup coming on. All of the registration for these ones are open. It'll be in the follow-up email as well. Or you can go to acilab.com/lets-develop, and you can go ahead and register for those so you'll get those reminders. All right, so let's get to our prizes. First up, we've got a $50 lab credit to ACI. Let's see who's winning that one. And it is Bill. Congratulations, Bill. You've just won a $50 credit to ACI. Up next, we've got our $75 lab credit. I love this part. The wheel cracks me up. And right on the line, it's Lisa. Congratulations, Lisa. You have just won a $75 lab credit. And now our grand prize on this one, a $100 lab credit. And we'll see who the winner of that one is. And it is Jean. And Jean, when you registered, you have JBK as part of your email address. That's how you know that one is you. I didn't have a last name when you registered there. But congratulations. Do want to let you know that all of these episodes and the content that we have is all come up from ideas that you guys have. So if there is a topic or a speaker that you want to see on an episode, email me. That's how we find our talent here and make sure that we're staying relevant on there. So if you have an idea that you want to see something more about, shoot me an email so we can do that. Phew. All right, Cheri, that was a ton of great information. I know that you've definitely inspired me, and based on the chat and comments here, we've definitely got some great ideas coming. So thank you so very much for joining us on this episode and sharing your talent and passion. It's very much appreciated.
Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you. And thank you, ACI. And thanks for everybody coming and hanging out with us today.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So that's officially a wrap for this episode. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Have a great night.
Bye.